Guys, what's going on? I thought I'd do the video before I knock out and get a bit of a kit. But guys, I'm pretty sure you guys saw my live stream. Some of you, if you haven't, go check out my live stream. I did live commentary on the fight on my channel. And as I said on the channel, a good big man beats a good little man. A very disappointing fight. We probably could have expected that though, because like I said, I wasn't surprised at what happened. I was surprised at how good Mikey Garcia's chin was, but Errol Spence holds on or retains his IBF World Championship in a very dominating performance. In a performance where he didn't break sweat, in my opinion. I don't think he got out of first gear. It was so easy for him. It was so comfortable. Mikey Garcia was just well out of his depth. Mikey Garcia didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to break Errol Spence down. Errol Spence was too strong, too big. He used his size advantage to neutralize Mikey Garcia completely. Garcia, from what I was watching, I felt like Garcia was getting bust up in there, especially towards the later part of the fight. Errol Spence came out early and he was very, I was very impressed, actually. Don't get me wrong, I was very impressed with his performance, because Errol Spence throughout his career so far just showed me he's a bully type of fighter. He comes forward and he bashes you up and wears you down and knocks you out. In this fight, he showed me that he could box. He was using his jab, he was using his size, he was using his height, his reach to his advantage, and he was completely neutralizing Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia just did not have any answer. He was frustrated because he couldn't get his punches off. And that was because I said before, Errol Spence has a very good defense and he's very hard to hit clean. It's not easy to get hold of Errol Spence. And this is what you saw. You saw a very meticulous performance by Errol Spence, a performance which you could say you would expect from somebody that's very experienced. And Errol Spence isn't that experienced yet. Yeah, he's had a few world title defenses, but it was a very mature performance, you know, against a very accomplished Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is a very accomplished fighter, but he was totally out of his depth, I think most people thought that Errol Spence would stop Mikey Garcia. And one thing I was impressed about Mikey Garcia is toughness and his chin. I think that's one thing you have to give Mikey Garcia credit for, is his strong chin. He had a great chin. But unfortunately, he just wasn't able to get into the fight. And the fight was very one-sided. I actually thought Spence probably won every single round. It was that bad. It was a very dominating performance by Errol Spence. He dominated from round 1 to round 12. You know, Mikey Garcia just wasn't in his class or league, if I'm honest with you. You know, Garcia just wasn't big enough to compete. And that's no disrespect, but when you're moving up 2 weight categories, it's very difficult for you to beat the top guy, because, like I said, this is boxing and size and weight matters. When you're taller than somebody and when you're so skilled like Spence is, Spence showed a different side to his game. He's so good technically and a good boxer as well. You know, he completely outboxed Mikey Garcia. It was actually technically brilliant from Spence, and he made it a boring fight where Garcia just couldn't get into the fight. Garcia tried in spots, but Errol Spence was just too good. His defense was too good. Everything about Errol Spence was on point, and he just completely neutralized and made Mikey Garcia look like an average fighter. And that's just Mikey Garcia moving up 2 weight categories. But I will say this: I actually, when I look at that performance from Mikey Garcia is a pound for pound one of the top fighters in the world, and he was completely dominated by a bigger man. When Amir Khan went up to fight Canelo, Amir Khan for me was winning the fight, and in many people's eyes was winning the fight, right? And that was a very competitive fight. This wasn't a competitive fight. And that for me is because I think Mikey Garcia doesn't do anything brilliant. He does everything great. He's very technically sound. He does everything good, but he does nothing great. Khan has great speed, which is always going to get him ahead in fights. Mikey Garcia didn't have enough power up around 147. He didn't carry his power. He didn't have speed. He doesn't have great speed. I actually think Errol Spence, this is what I said before, I believe Errol Spence is quicker than Mikey Garcia. He's more powerful than Mikey Garcia. So how is Garcia going to win the fight? I didn't think Mikey Garcia could outbox him. Yeah, I said that maybe his skills Mikey Garcia might be able to get ahead, but I don't even think Mikey Garcia's skills are better than Spence's. So Spence, I think all round was just a better fighter than Garcia, and I think that showed in the fight. I think Garcia was just totally out of his depth, and Garcia should never come up to the 147 division again, because I think any top welterweight beats him, if I'm totally honest with you, because I think the welterweight division, it's a different kettle of fish. I think there was points in that fight where Garcia was just surviving, really. Surviving. He tried out. I don't want to disrespect him by saying he was just surviving, but to me, I think he realized that he wasn't going to win the fight. You know, he realized, and I think his brother, Robert Garcia, realized that they weren't going to win the fight. He even said in the 11th round, I think Robert Garcia said to his brother, do you still want to continue? Because I think they could see that he was getting beaten up in there, and the fight was getting quite one-sided. And I think they wanted the fight. If I'm honest with you, I think Robert Garcia didn't want the fight to go on, because commentators on air were right that, you know, that this can't be good for Garcia taking this kind of punishment, because towards the latter end of the fight, it was as if we knew who the winner was. It was just whether Spence could stop him, you know. And I didn't, after the 11th or 10th, I think Robert Garcia should have probably thrown in the towel, because Mikey Garcia was getting beat up in that fight. He was never going to win because it didn't look like he could knock out Spence. So he wasn't going to knock out Spence. And Spence looked so much bigger and stronger. He was just Mikey Garcia started taking a lot of punishment, and he was taking a lot of punches clean. And when you're taking punches from a bigger man like Spence, you know, that's not a great thing. So especially when you're talented as Mikey Garcia and you can go back down to your lower weight categories and fight there, it made sense for Robert Garcia to stop him taking that punishment. I didn't like after around, 10, 11, I believe the fight should have been stopped, because Garcia was never going to win the fight. He was never going to knock Spence out. He wasn't going to win on points. As you saw from the scorecards, it was unanimous and it was wide, 120, 108. It was an easy win for Spence. So, you know, there was no way, you know, Garcia was going to win that. Garcia was going to win. So, you know, I would have liked to see the fight stopped by Robert Garcia. But, you know, it's his brother, and his brother probably said, I want to go on. You know, these are tough Mexicans. They don't want to give in or jack it in. He wanted to go on. But I just think he was totally out of his depth fighting. Totally out of his depth fighting Errol Spence. He was too big. Too big, too strong, and I just think Mikey Garcia didn't know what to do. And this is an exceptional, talented pound-for-pound fighter, and he didn't know what to do, if I'm totally honest with you. He was totally outmatched, totally outclassed, and I think, you know, he needs to go back down to 135 and fight Lomachenko, and, you know, fight guys in around his weight category, because he can't compete with the welterweights. The welterweights are too big. They're too big, too strong for him. And, you know, I just don't think, I think, you know, Keith Thurman's a good boxer. Sean Porter's very good. I don't think he can match it with those guys. I don't think he's physically strong enough or big enough to be able to handle those guys. And I think, you know, what he showed, he's very tough. He can definitely stay in there and match those guys for toughness, but I don't believe with his size, with the size advantage that they'll have over him. I think they'll beat him. So I think Mikey Garcia put on. It was a poor fight, you know. It was a poor fight, and I think he was completely neutralized. It was terrible to watch. It was boring. Most people anticipated this to be one of the fights of the year, but really it was a dud. It was an easy win for Spence. Spence, in my opinion, didn't get out of first gear. And I think everybody now is looking forward to see who Spence will fight in his next fight, or who Spence will fight next. I think obviously there's big fights out there. Porter, Pacquiao came into the ring, which I'll do a separate video about. But obviously there's big interest in Spence's next fight. People think this guy is the truth. His nickname is the truth, and he lived up to that tonight. I think he showed... He showed a lot. He showed me a lot. He showed me he can box. He showed me he can fight. He's an exceptional talent, an exceptional fighter. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Errol Spence moving forward. I believe he's the truth. I believe he's going to go on to become one of the greats. But having said that, I think there are flaws there, and I do feel like a Pacquiao or a Thurman can definitely exploit that. Whether they can beat him, that only time will tell. But I don't think it's going to be one-way traffic or easy for anybody fighting Errol Spence, because he's a very, very good fighter. But what do you guys make of today, guys? Errol Spence dominating and beating Mikey Garcia in a one-sided fight, in a quite a boring fight, but a fight which Errol Spence dominates and shows why he's one of the best welterweights, if not the best welterweight in the world. Leave your thoughts, guys, and guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.